Hey everyone, my name is Lester Martin, developer advocate here at Starburst, and this is episode number two of what I hope will become something that's useful and valuable for others. It's an Ask Me Anything style conversation, about 30 minutes initially. If we ever need more, we'll get bigger. But the gamut in the space is basically data engineering. As I often do, I like to say a little connection before content. Really just put a picture of myself up with one of Lester Kasai's famous skateboards for those old skateboarders like myself, and a couple other information, and I'm gonna move along. One thing I would look on the bottom is an email address to all of us here and the DevRel organization, just devrel@starburst.io. We'll find myself and others, and you can get my email address as well. Before we jump on in and I start looking at the comments, I will take a hard look and just remind everyone that it's Ask Me Almost Anything, you know, with some ground rules. Keep it around data engineering for the most part, or data science and analysis and AI, things that relate in that space. No sales pitches, no vendor bashing. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the perfect answers. Still depends. I want to make sure we accept that. But gladly, if I don't have an answer, I would more than gladly take that task and kind of respond back. So as you raise those in the comment section here on LinkedIn Live, gives me a chance, if not now, afterwards, come back and lay those things out. So we'll keep it professional as well. All right. So what I will do is leave those up, and I'm going to see if I can find the exciting chat window because sometimes it's a little confusing to me. Last time I had a problem with it too. It looks like, yep, can't seem to find the chat. So I'm gonna do myself another favor. So I'm gonna go to LinkedIn and I'm gonna join the event. I think that'll help me find it. Well, while I'm doing that, I'm gonna let you, feel free to put something in the comment section. Let me know where you're from, that kind of stuff. Here it is. And it's probably going to have a reverb for a second while I turn the microphone back off. Three, two. It said, wait for the host to start it. I thought I started it already. Oh, here it is. Here it is. And it's probably going to have a reverb for a second while I turn the microphone back off. Three, two. It said, wait for the host to start it. I thought I started it already. Well, either or, if I didn't start that correctly, again, my name is Lester Martin. We're doing our second Ask Me Anything conversation here. Here it is. Here it is. And there we go. I think I got it all going now. Whew. Technical difficulties, our most favorite activity ever, you know. And as somebody said, you just say the day of the week and say, Thursdays. So there we go. Thursdays. Again, my name is Lester Martin from Starburst, developer advocate here. We're doing an Ask Me Anything. This is number two, about anything in the data engineering space. There was some information, if you didn't see it, devrel@starburst.io is the biggest thing to take from that. There's our ground rules. And for the most part, while those are up, I think I can see the chat. So I'm looking, and right now I don't see anyone with comments in the chat. And what I'm going to do with that is I said I would bring a um, a topic every time, at least one topic to discuss, and maybe kick off some questions. But I am also going to connect as a user over here in LinkedIn in the background. Click on that. Is I said I would bring. There we go. All right, now I should be able to see the chat. Yes, nobody's there with a comment or a question. Hopefully, we have some folks here. What I'm going to do, looks like I'm the only viewer. In case anyone does watch this later, the topic that I said I would bring up was our schema discovery tool, schema discovery tool. So really what I want to say is over here in an S3 bucket, just a bucket, I have a folder called Pokemon. And in that folder, really just have one file. Imagine I had lots of files, but just have one of those right there. And in fact, it's just a CSV record. You can see what that looks like right there. Nothing too crazy. And what I'm going to do is say, hey, can we build a data lake table around them? Now, those that have done this for a long time ago, hey, this isn't that bad. There's 6 or 7 fields, pretty easy to look at. I think I could tackle this Lester on my own, but say it was a lot bigger of a file, or it's other file formats, Parquets, or it's a big nasty JSON that just looking at it would hurt your head. What you could do is come to Starburst Galaxy. So again, we're not here to promote products, but I got you here. And if you don't ask a question, I might as well mention a few products, a product or two that I have. And then what I'm gonna do is get Starburst Galaxy. It's a software as a service offering that sits on top of the Trino SQL engine itself, and then bring some additional material. So you saw that data set. What I'm going to do is go under a catalog that I previously set up. So I'm going to say data, catalogs. And here I'm going to go down here and find AWS Pokemon. Yeah, that's what I set up. And I don't have any schemas, just the info schema. So I'm going to go in schema discovery. And I'm just going to say, let's try this tool out. And this tool is pretty simple. It's just going to simply say, tell me where to look. Now, you might have remembered, here, I'll show you, we actually just have a location. I'm sending you right to this folder. And in fact, it's just one logical table. But if you had a whole bunch of tables, in fact, up above that, we do have a bunch of different tables here. You could set the target there and see what happens and let it tear through there. I'm going to focus on just a simple one. And then back in the tool from there, you would say, hey, where do I want to land this? So we already picked the catalog, pick any schema you want, define one, add one. I'm just going to use a default there. And then we have some options. These make sense. Definitely we have lots and lots and lots of data. You can have it just look at certain in number of files, so many of this, so many of that. I'm going to say crawl through everything. I only have one file, so it's going to run through everything. And what that's going to do, if I let it work that way, it's actually going to find out if not find out, make sure that anything that it offers up makes sense for everything. So, sampling might get you a situation where, oh, this looks like a floating point number or something, but maybe outside the sample, you might find out, oh, no, there's a string there. Things like that could blow it up. All right, so we're going to say, sure, in this discovered schema, go ahead and build me that table called Pokemon. So I'll hit the create tables, and it's going to spin probably, few 3, 4, 5 seconds. Hey, look at that. I see some folks here. Yay. And again, if you showed up a little late, not here to do a demo. Doing a demo, maybe to spark some conversations and question, that kind of stuff. I'll put on the screen while I see some more players here. Here's what we're just talking about. Anything you want to talk about? And I think somebody thought this was going to be tools only. Absolutely not. You got a scenario, a use case. You inherited something. You're getting acquired or acquiring someone. You have just some thoughts. I've been doing this a little while, and while I don't have all the answers in the world, I definitely have a few opinions, and I'm always glad to share those. All right. So here, I'll go ahead and circle back. I don't see any other comment. There's 5 of us here. If someone wants a shout out in the comments, like I'm gonna do, hey, I'm in Atlanta. Where is everyone from? If you want to reply to that one, or not, that'd be nice. Let me know people folks are here. All right, so that Schema Discovery tool ran, and really what it did, if you take a quick look, and this is what I meant earlier, this is a pretty simple solution, one table only. We could have probably done this, but it was nice that the tool did it for us, especially if it's a size. And so, yay, we got our ATL represented there. Lee's back again. Thank you, Lee. There we go. Simple table. And it's going to be nice enough. If it can, it's going to find out, not just like often, this is good for a tool to build like a bronze layer, a land layer. Hey, don't change anything. Just map the simplest, straightforward table to the data set we have. We told it to do an exhaustive look at all the data. So it was able to say, hey, we can go well past, just doing varchars for everything. Some of these things really fit within a big int or a double and so on and so on and so forth. So built all that. And of course, it built the bottom part, which is, where is it and what is it? We brought the where is it. We didn't care about the what is it. It was a comma separated file. Why? Because we looked, but we didn't have to. Maybe someone just said, Hey, it's over here. Here's a location. Go nuts. This tool doesn't make us do any interpretation of our own. All right, so I'm going to close that out. And really, what we should do is make sure it exists. Make sure that stuff is around there. So one way easy to do it is go back to the schemas. There it is. Discovered schema. And there's our table Pokemon. And this is just the snap the catalog view. We can even get a preview here. If we really want to go query things, probably the smart answer is go back to our query editor. But I'll let this take a second and spin here. And then we'll jump back over to the query editor. There we go. We're seeing some data. And I will jump back over here as well. Query editor, yeah. And I'm just going to run a quick query on that. Pokemon discover schema, and it is, there it is. Select all from Pokemon. Let's make sure we see it. Discover schema. There it is. That's the table we created without creating a table. Yay, good for us. And I think I covered my run button. I did. There we go, run. Cool stuff. Now, I'm going to stop because I don't want to just make this a demonstration on this, but I am more than glad if anyone's watching this now or watching this later and you want to give this a hard tour. It's free. Go to Starburst.io. November, we're not here to sell stuff, but definitely you can go there, sign up for free, and try this functionality yourself. So if you got some really tough files, you want to see what happens, give it a try, see what it works, or ping me with Devrel at Starburst.io. I'm glad to help you with it. Especially if you find some issue. Maybe you have something so complicated that even our tool doesn't know what to do with it. I don't think it's going to be quite that bad, but more than glad to kind of show that stuff. All right, so let me take the screen off. Let me minimize all this or stop my screen share for a minute and see if anyone's got some stuff. So Lee, what if you don't mind, tell us what high level what you're doing in the space of recent. Anything of are you still exploring? You looking for something in particular? Need some help with something at some point in time, or you got some cool project you don't mind, sharing with everybody? I would love to hear about it. I can master all my tools here. Here we go. If not, that's cool. Guess I can always go back and show some more stuff. We can try some more stuff too. Nothing like a live demo to see if something works out well. So maybe we'll do that. Oh, that's right. Thanks, man. Thanks. Hey, you know what? We're here. It's only a handful of us here. Why not we do it? Why don't we just go ahead and do something live? Yeah, there we go. Moa is my neighbor, even though we haven't met yet in face to face, but we'll do that soon. All right, let's do some let's have fun with this thing and see how well it works with some other data sets that are out there. All right, we're gonna go off to be a little bit loose, and this will get recorded. Integration patterns. So when you say integration patterns, often that means for a lot of people, um, it could mean lots of things. Obviously, system A, system B. Is the integration still for the purposes of data lake and some kind of analytics? I'm assuming. So you'll bring data from the ERP, some custom database, some existing data sets, and that kind of stuff. Have you had a pretty hybrid? Maybe if it's okay, I'd love to know what some of those sources are, and if you had any trouble with some of them, or even better, maybe some successes. But because that's definitely something that Trino can do, but it's not about Trino here. We're trying to just talk about what you're doing here as a whole. I like to believe there are a lot of tools in and out of Azure SQL, maybe Fabric, Azure Service Bus. Awesome, awesome. That's very cool stuff. I'm trying to imagine what other tools in place. Are you doing all your analytics off of Azure's first class products like that, or do you see Spark or Trino or somebody else as part of it as well? Or I know it's fun for me to ask you questions in type, so don't feel on demand. All right, I was going to share my screen too, so let me finish that while I'm watching this text here. Okay, here we go, Lee. While we're kicking all that around, I'm going to be the brave person and say, let's go pick some of these other data sets that sit out here that I haven't tried before. Here we go. I use this system called Blue Bikes. It is Blue bikes. Yeah, this is true. Uh, Lee says can't respond in real time. I think it's about a 6 second delay from when I say it to you hear it, and then I have no idea what other things happen. Plus, we buff. So I'm gonna go to Blue Bikes Boston and see if I can find that site. There we go. Since Blue Bikes is just a bike share, like a ride share, but bike share system, I think most of us heard of this concept, and they definitely have some data sets you can go pull down, etc. So I pulled some of those down earlier, and I put them out here under yeah, exactly. I put them out there, and we have some raw data sets. So I'm gonna peek. We're gonna make this thing work a little bit, I guess. There's this even this is pretty small. Some CSV records. I'm not even gonna look at it, and we all can guess that the tool, especially for CSVs, and I know that CSVs right there, the tool is going to work really good when it knows what to name things like column names. So if these don't have a header row, then we all know probably it's going to say like field one, field two, field three. But let's try it out. Let's go steal this. I'm going to go back to my tool and I'm going to do it all over again. So we'll go back to the catalog. This is Lester trying this little product on the fly and see how well it goes on something that I haven't tried before. So I'm going to run the discovery. I'm going to say the URL is, well, is actually not that. Let's see if I can put the one I had in there before. There we go. And then backtrack it. I think it's going to be Blue Bikes. And that, we'll just make sure, blue underscore bikes, blue underscore bikes, raw trips. We'll drop it in. Why not the discover schema? Increment discovery, do a full discovery. There we go. Let's just do this, run it in that, and let's cross our fingers and see what it thinks. Okay, so it's going to have a unexciting table name because all it found was files, didn't find a folder, so didn't know what to call it. It calls it the name of that folder. That's a terrible name, but we can use that again as a bronze layout. Let's do that. Let's see what happens here. Or we can do an alter and rename something if that's really what we want to do. So let's see how well it adapts to that, crossing our fingers. I'm just going to look right here and see what it created. Hey, good news is that there were some headers in there, so at least it was able to leverage this. Now, here's a good example of what I said earlier. Sometimes, you know, we're not going to be able to do better than something like varchars or everything. And in fact, that's a pretty well known strategy for your bronze tier, your raw tier, your land, whatever term you use for that medallion first tier space. It says, hey, just call it all strings, varchars. Why? Because you don't know yet how good the data is, what kind of integrity, what kind of data quality, so on and so on and so forth. All right, so build this table. We're off and running, and we should be able to go query that yet again. Let's make sure it shows up. And I think it'll be right there, raw trips. And we'll just do a quick query that. See what we see in there. All right, there we go. Trip, how long it was, and much like we didn't look at that Pokemon data too hard, but the reality is what was there is probably not always exactly what you're hoping for, and so on and so forth. From exactly what I mean by that is maybe data came from a vendor, came from a system in a certain way, and you're like, that makes sense for us. So in the Pokemon ones that I'll show you right here, back to him, when we run, there's some data here like encounter. Counter means these are Pokemon Go data spawned. The Pokemon showed up, Pikachu showed up. How long was it around before somebody caught it? It was this many milliseconds or so. So the reality is maybe, as we look at that bronze layer and bring it forward, we might do something with it. And for example, for exact example, what we did in our Pokemon worlds, we do something like this. We say, hey, you know what? Why don't we build a table that has, in fact, some columns we don't even care about anymore. Failed to write, failed to commit. Yeah, I'm in the wrong place, I guess. What did I do here? Create table, discover. Yeah, I didn't create a schema. A few other things that I forgot to do on this one. I'll jump to the bottom and say, though, the trick is this. Sometimes you might do stuff like this. Very likely, in your medallion architecture as we move past bronze into silver is we're going to do probably some checking, some cleansing, some enrichment, potentially some projection, potentially some adding more rows by maybe inflating it or decreasing some rows. So this is a simple little query, but we use it to insert into our silver layer, our well-known, well-established bit of information. And in fact, this is the one example I was just simply saying, hey, sometimes you might do something like that, convert milliseconds to seconds and tackle what if there isn't one present or like a -1 or something. What do you do in scenarios like that? We did some rounding on the Latin long numbers, did some casting, and then just dropped some fields. We even dropped rows in this particular situation. We said, hey, there's a worldwide of Pokemon data, but my business users say that's nice, but I never need more than San Francisco. And you say, you sure? You sure? They're like, never, probably never ever. So yeah, maybe and sometimes it does make sense to actually leave some of the data in the bronze tier. Why? If it's if you're going to copy over to the silver tier, 900 more times the amount of data, and your business says, I will never query that. Okay, you're going to get a better performance by not copying all over. Normally, that's not usually what happens. If you're a bank, you want all the transactions. If you're a retailer, you want all the sales, you want all the products, that kind of stuff as well. All right, so we did do a quick try. I think it worked. I was happy with that. But remember, that tool is what it is. It's that first pass of what someone's normally are going to do by themselves by looking at this table and then writing out that whole long this statement right here. I guess you could say show a create table, something like this that we saw in the tool itself. Something that says, hey, I'm going to build this table. I'm going to, define all this kind of information. So a pretty darn useful jump start to get you going, especially when you're taking on more than one table, bringing on lots of stuff. All right. I think it is the smallest crowd today. Day two, session two, much less attended than session one, and that's okay. We're trying to find a footing here, trying to find out how to get this information out there and see if there's a need for this. And I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to show my beautiful, pretty face and remind everyone that's here. One, thanks for coming. We're going to wrap it up in about 8 minutes. I'm going to hang around anyway in case someone does have a question or comment. But for the most part, I think that was all I was planning on showing and hoping to drive some thoughts or questions or comments, etc. Um, yeah, maybe. Oh, good. Lee's got a question. I'm gonna read it next. But I was gonna say, if you're here or if you're watching this later, maybe feel free to bring a big question, a hard question. Why this over that? Or if I have this situation, why would I do that or something? So Lee looks like he might have gave us one. I'm gonna take a look. Hey, he said he's got oh my gosh, it's got a more on it. Dot dot dot. Let's read it all. Oh wow, that's a big one. So let's say that your data set is reachable from a REST endpoint. Okay. And I want to execute a get on that endpoint, create a table bronze that lands somewhere. Okay, so the data set is reachable from a REST endpoint. I'm going to say, fine, that's your data repository, it's your data lake, pull it. You want to execute a get. So let's just say this is all like S3, create a table, bronze, land that somewhere. But let's also imagine that I have another endpoint that describes what the data looks like. And I want to use that endpoint to describe the particular data. So I think you got some metadata somewhere else. You got some data somewhere, you got some, if I'm reading it right, some metadata somewhere else, another endpoint that describes what the data looks like. And we use the endpoint to describe the particular data set so that I can land it with very much better precision on what the data actually looks like. So where I then land it, I want to pass it off to another process, to a REST endpoint, to a predefined, yeah, thank you. Yes, to a predefined schema silver, and then run some out-of-band changes, takes over, brings it out. What does that look like? It looks like what you just said. You just described that workflow. Now that workflow needs, some parts to kind of do that. You already made the assumption that you have that. I'm going to call it like a metadata catalog or something, a data dictionary, whatever I'm going to call it. We just talked about blue bikes, bike rides. So somewhere that system says I can go query that. Now, when you're in that world, you need at least a couple things. You're talking about a workflow, right? Well, and to be honest, I don't know if it's much of as a workflow as a setup because my hunch is um, per table in most cases. How tricky can I put together with the tools? Well, with the Starburst alone or Trino alone, unless, and I have to look and I'll take that one and circle back and see, unless we've exposed the way we decorate. Let me show you that. And again, it's not about less this system, but I think the question was here, so I'm going to kind of bring it here and then go more generic. If you want to say the fact that we can, in the Pokemon system that we just did, discovered schema for the table Pokemon, or maybe the other table, the blue, yeah, the Pokemon, that's fine. If we want to come down here and say, what is the longitude, and we want to, some system helped us say, hey, this is the longitude value, blah, blah, blah. That kind of information, maybe some tags. That was also in that other system, this, that, another, that, this, and another kind of tags. And we want to do that for the table itself, want to do it for the scheme itself. Unless we in our tool have a way externally to do this, I know that's all those are planned. I don't know if that's today in our rest calls there. So let me if I can say this. How would I do it today? Today, via Galaxy, that's kind of a manual activity, sure. But depending on what you're doing, depending on how you want that information stored, if whatever tool you're stored in, so if we're going to use ours, if there's a REST API, the problem is not the problem. The work is, Lee, is that you're still going to have to do that. We're not going to go. We're not going to be totally wired up with a workflow that says pull data from here, metadata over here, collate them together. Our schema discovery tool by itself wouldn't do that. Now, if we exposed setting this information, then absolutely you're right. Now we're at workflow. We talked about the logical steps. And then we have to say, does that workflow to help us do that? Probably not. We probably still have to bring a little bit of glue, like a little bit of Python code or something that we can wire up and say, hey, fetch the metadata. And then because of that metadata, align it to the table and then just make those calls to push the update. So I think it would go something like that. So if you're automating it, probably it's more about not because there's one table with 100 columns, there are hundreds of schemas, each with tens or hundreds of columns. And then when you build that workflow with those particular tools, yeah, it'll work, it'll scale, but there's some effort in that. It's not a tool that I have. Again, we're not here to vendor push, but and are there other tools that might do all that? There might be none that I know personally that I use personally, but there may be some. All right, so once you built it, how can I put together with tools? You could, believe it or not, if you have a place to store that and a place to retrieve it, that glue that I said, even if you have to write in something like Python, it's pretty lightweight glue. A couple hours, probably an hour or less to get a functional thing working, a couple hours to just make it bulletproof, and then probably a couple hours to decide exactly how you operationalize it, what tool. Once I've built it, then what are the mechanisms to auto execute that process workflow? Yeah, the good news is when you're there and you have a tool like a Dagster or an Airflow or maybe even, I hesitate to say just DBT because DBT wants to do everything with, or today at least, do everything with SQL, but you could use some like a Dagster that uses some things DBT, some things with Python. So you need a workflow tool that can use a variety of tools, a little bit of custom code, a little bit of a widget, and then just some good old-fashioned SQL. But that tool, more than likely, is going to help you with what you just said. How do I automate that stuff? So is it a trigger? Is it time-based? So it's going to be in that tooling. Now, we don't have to that level, well, if you want to see what we have in Galaxy, I'd be glad to show you. We have a concept called jobs and stuff. I can show you that. But that's still not as far in as you described. It'd be much a little bit more of about the data loading perspective once it's in place. That's some good stuff there, Lee. In fact, what you're really talking about is a cool product, right? Especially one if it's so generic about when and where and why. My belief is there's only so many of those metadata systems out there. And I think we're going to get kicked off in about 1 minute. So let me just, before we go, in case it jumps off, hey, it was Lester from Starburst, developer advocate. We're going to do this again soon. I hope to see you then. I hope today was somewhat useful, if not entertaining. All right. So I'm still here, Lee. And Lee, you and I definitely can DM each other. And yeah, exactly. And the good news that I'll put it in the comments. We don't have to install it. We can just I use Starburst Galaxy. I didn't install anything. Put first name, last name, and an email address, and I got this system and use it. I don't have to do installation. So want to help you there. So I was making a call in case I'm still live for some reason, Lee, that I'm more than glad to send me a DM here on LinkedIn or message me, at Devrel at Starburst.io or Lester.Martin at starburstdata.com. Either one's going to find me. I'll pause because it looks like it didn't kick me out. Still says we're live. And I know that wasn't a succinct, perfect answer, Lee. I was just kind of walking through my process, how I would start tackling that, but not unheard of what you said. Not the hardest thing in the world. You're welcome. You're welcome. I hope it was somewhat useful, not just a nice thanks. I hope it was a little helpful. Again, glad to discuss it further, either here or somewhere else. All right, so we're at the bottom of the hour or the half hour here on the East Coast, U.S. times. I'm going to pause a few more seconds and watch the chat. If no one else has anything, I will go ahead and close this out when I find that button, which should be over here. Oh, there it is. Leave some cool button. Oh, there it is. End stream. So let me just double check. Lee, thanks for the questions. I'm going to hit the end stream on everybody right now. And I thank you for hanging out. Bye.